So today we are going to learn more about the support for teachers and support for parents, especially for early childhood. And we're gonna know, like, have a look at the current education system. Dr. Kathryn, could you please introduce yourself and what do you do for business?
Hello, everyone, and hello, Noor. Thank you for your invitation to share a little bit of information about what I do. I am an educator, and I have been an educator for pretty much my whole life, 36 years, so I know a little bit about education. I've been a classroom teacher for 25 of those years, and I've been a university academic, and now I have my own consultancy business in education, and the business name is Future Strong Education, because my passion is to build a strong future for children. So Future Strong Education seemed to sort of be a good fit, seemed to be the right sort of name. And what I generally do is work with early childhood educators and parents, and I help develop their skills and their knowledge so that they can be the best they can be, and then they can allow children and give children the opportunity to be the best that they can be. Because the way I look at it, the children are our future. So they're the ones that are going to save the planet. They're the ones that are going to look after us when we're old. So, we need to give them some good strategies and give them the best start in life that we possibly can. So in my profession, as I said, I was a classroom teacher for a long time, but in my profession now, I speak at a lot of conferences and I do keynote presentations as well. I do professional development sessions for early childhood educators. I do mentoring and coaching. I have some parent clients that I coach them in parenting strategies. I write for a range of different organisations, different education magazines and parenting magazines, and I'm writing a book that I hope to have finished and published and out next year. And I'm tentatively calling it Happy Kids, Happy Parents, a Family Action Plan to a Happy Life. And it's based on the Happy Kids, Happy Parents online course that I've developed that's on my website. So I'm sort of just adding to that a little bit. So that's generally what I do. I wear a lot of different hats. I work on a lot of different projects with people across the world. I travel when you're allowed to travel. I travel globally, speaking and working with educators and with parents, and now it's all been online, of course. So I do a bit of work around the emotional intelligence area as well, which is something that I really enjoy. So a broad range of things. So I started practicing being a teacher when I was a little girl in my garage at home, and all the neighbourhood children were my class, and I'd write sums on the side of the garage wall, and that was the beginning of my teaching career, I guess. So I guess I've come a long way since then.
It has been a long way, Doctor.
Yeah.
Great.
Bit of a journey.
It's a great journey. So my first question here, how do you evaluate the teacher's approach? Like, where do you see the teachers need training and need help?
Well, the way education is now, Noor, is that we're time poor now in the classroom. It's called a crowded curriculum, and that just means teachers are expected to do so many things in the day and cover everything for children. Cover from teaching them manners to teaching them the numeracy and literacy and everything in between. So it's a busy life for teachers, and because of that and because of the expectations that are on teachers in our community and in our society, teachers become burnt out and stressed. And I read some research the other day about teacher burnout, and almost 50% of graduate teachers leave the profession after the first 5 years because of this burnout, this additional stress, and just feeling as though they've got so many things to do and not enough time to do it. So that is quite alarming, I think. So one of the things that I do is work with educators about their own well-being and how to take care of themselves so that they can have a long, sustainable and happy career, and really feel fulfilled in the career that they've chosen. Because I think it's a real worry, particularly in this COVID year, where teachers have had to do a lot of different things that they don't have the skills for necessarily, or they've been put in situations where they've had to think quickly and quickly get something in place because of the urgency of teaching online and getting lessons, and a lot of different things like that has been really stressful for a lot of teachers. And I can imagine that the stress level is much higher this year than it has been in previous years. So it's even more important, I think, for teachers to start taking care of themselves and, reflecting on themselves and trying to put in some self-care practices. And that's what I try and support and teach teachers how to do. Same with parents. Parents have had the same deal. Parents have had a whole lot of things happen this year, haven't they?
Sure.
Had to sort of, they've had to teach online, they've had to try and work, they've tried to juggle all of those things. So the same thing for parents. So I teach parents how to have time for themselves, and that's a lot of those self-care practices as well. It's so important if you're going to be in for the long haul. It's important that you know how to take care of yourself so that you can do your job, or so that you can be the best parent that you can be for your children.
Yeah, so I'd like you to explain a little more, what strategies do you help these teachers and parents with?
Okay, so it can be simple strategies. It can be just, time management. So I often talk to teachers about the Pomodoro effect, and that is, chunking the activities that they've got to do, or chunking the bookwork that they've got to do into 40-minute sessions, and having a timer so that they work solidly for that 40 minutes, and then they have 5 or 10 minutes off, and then they do another 40 minutes. So if they're doing report cards or things like that, that they have to do the paperwork, or they have to do some professional reading, to do it on a timed basis, so that they are giving themselves solid time to focus on what they're doing, but they're also giving themselves some downtime. But it also might be just taking a moment to go outside onto the ground and ground yourself to Mother Earth, and look at nature and look at the trees and calm your brain. It could be doing some sort of simple meditation techniques. It could be just doing some breathing techniques that I teach people how to do. That just helps calm the brain, settles that cortisol level that's in the brain, infuses the brain with dopamine, which is the happy hormone, and that calms everything. Because I also always focus on what's going on in the brain when people are starting to get stressed and under a lot of pressure. And how those 3 sections of the brain work. So we've got the brain stem, and we've got this limbic system, and then we've got the mammalian, or the thinking part of the brain, up here. And when we're under stress, when we're under pressure, we tend to go here to the brain stem, and here to the amygdala in the limbic system. And the amygdala is all around emotion. So if we're feeling stressed, frustrated, anxious, the emotion that we feel connects to the brainstem, and we go into this fight or flight mode, or freeze, where we can't think and we've got this brain fog. So I try to teach teachers and parents strategies to calm themselves, so that we can reduce that cortisol level, so that we can get past that fight or flight, and we can move up into this top part of the brain where people can actually think straight and make some good decisions, and remember things and put things in place, because they're thinking clearly, because the cortisol level has dissipated and the dopamine level has increased, and they become much calmer. So it's really important in these times, I think, and life is busy. Everybody's got a million things that they have to do every day, and if you've got several children, and you're a parent, there's lots of things to do with each of the children, as well as just the normal parenting things, and then going to work on top of that. That's a whole other layer again. Same in the classroom. There's all the paperwork that you have to do, the meetings that you have to attend, actually teaching the children, or the planning and preparing that you have to do too. So it's layer on layer on layer. So I work with teachers and parents to try and unpack that, and try and streamline it, and try and put in some of these time management skills and some of this, self-care practices as well. I work with student teachers, and this is one of the subjects that I wrote for the university, and this is something that we work on over a period of about 12 weeks. With the university students, going through a range of different strategies and scenarios, so they can learn how to manage their stress levels, and then they can be more productive in what they're doing. So you probably thought you asked a simple question, but it's actually quite multi-layered.
Yeah, that is great. So my other question is quite similar. How do you translate that into your book?
Okay, so in my book, I walk parents through what it means to be a parent. So we look at the four styles of parenting, and we try and identify what style of parent you might be and whether you want to be that style of parent. So you might be the permissive parent that doesn't mind what your children are doing. You just think, oh yeah, whatever you want to do, it's okay, it doesn't matter. So there's no real boundaries and there's no real rules. The children sort of run the household really. Or there could be parents that are just really busy and they just don't have time for all of this stuff. So again, there may be a bit of distance between the children and the parents. Or there could be the authoritative parent, and that's someone who has boundaries. The children know what's expected of them. They talk to the children about what needs to happen in the household, and it's firm, but it's fair. And then we have the authoritarian type of parent, and the authoritarian type of parent is usually focused on the goal and just tells the children what to do. And there's not a lot of discussion. It's more about just you need to do what I ask you to do because I'm the parent. So in the course on my website and also in the book we expand on this a bit more, but we talk about what sort of parenting style fits with you. And does that work now, or would you like to make some changes, and what might those changes look like? We also go through why children do what they do, like what's driving their behaviour. And the research tells us that there's generally 4 main reasons or main needs that children are trying to fulfill with their behaviour. So they might be after attention, they might be feeling like they need to take revenge, maybe they're not happy with something that's happened. There might be a power struggle, so it's like, you're not going to tell me what to do, I'm 5 and I know everything. So or it might be that they just don't want to be involved, they want to avoid whatever it is that you're asking them to do. So there's these 4 main ways, 4 main needs that children have, and that drives their behaviour. Now, as an adult, if we can work out what the need is, which one of these things are they accessing, then we can put strategies in place to address each one of those. And that's what I go through in the book and also in the course. We also look at why children don't do what you ask them to do, what's in the brain that children don't follow through with the instructions that you give them. And often it's because they can't retain maybe you've given them 3 instructions in the one instruction. So it might be take your shoes off, take your socks off, put them on the shelf. For a young child, that's 3 things that they've got to remember. And in the brain, there's this thing called brain leakage, and the message sometimes falls between the synapses, so the whole message doesn't actually get across from one synapse to the other. So there's this gap. So they might put their shoes away, but then they go off and go outside and play. And they forget to take their socks off, and they forget to put their shoes and socks in the shelf. They just don't get it, because developmentally the brain has to mature and it has to have this thing called myelination. And that's a whole other conversation that we probably don't have time for now. But all this stuff is happening in the brain. So that's something that I explain as well. So I explain what language you can use as a parent or as a teacher so that children comply and children understand what you want. I talk about the fun things that you can do with children to sort of build those relationships and increase that bond with the children. We talk about the different expectations that you can have of your children, like what's appropriate for a 3-year-old might not be appropriate for an 8-year-old, and what's reasonable for you to be expecting from your child depending on where they are developmentally. And there's a whole range of other tidbits that go in amongst all of that. So that's just like a really brief snapshot of what you might discover on this online course that I have, and then again in the book when I finally get that all pulled together and published.
Yeah, congratulations. That my question here is, you mentioned 4 types of parents and then 4 reasons for children, how they react. Like what strategies do you teach for parents and for children to be able to balance these types together?
Well, first of all, it's about identifying what it is. So identifying first, what type of parenting style do you have? Or do you have a blend of a couple? And that, depending on the situation, there could be a blend. So if you're tired and you can't be bothered because you're tired, you've had a big day, the kids are going crazy, you might be the permissive parent that just goes, oh, I don't care, do whatever you like, I don't care. And it's because you're tired. The next day, you might be feeling rested, you might be feeling good. So you say, no, you're not allowed to have chocolate for breakfast, put it back away. And no, we're not going to do that. You need to go and get your bag, you need to get your shoes, and you're quite firm with the boundaries that you have. So there could be a blend of parenting styles, which can be confusing for a child because they don't know where they stand. So it's about us as parents deciding, all right, which way am I going to go? Am I going to be a permissive parent, or am I going to be the authoritative parent, which is the fair but firm? And am I going to put those boundaries in place? So even on the days that I am tired, the children know what the boundaries are. So it's about looking at that and then talking about, well, what are the non-negotiables? What are the boundaries that I actually have in my family? What is okay that I can let slide, and what won't I let slide? So maybe something that you won't let slide is that they have to brush their teeth every night before bed. That's a non-negotiable. That's what you've got to do. So that's part of being an authoritative parent, that's the boundary, that's the rule, that's what we do. So that's part of that. So initially, looking at, well, what is it that's important to you as a parent, and what doesn't really matter, that you can doesn't matter to you whether they do it or whether they don't. With the 4 needs that children have for their challenging behaviour, if they're wanting attention, let's say, a lot of people say, well, they just want attention, just ignore them, they just want attention. But the thing with that is, if you ignore it, they up the ante, they get worse and worse and worse because they want attention. That's what they feel. They feel like no one's noticing them. They feel like nobody cares. They feel like nobody loves them. That's why they're going for the attention. So the attention could be just really bad behavior because, hello, they're going to get attention. They might get into trouble, but still they're getting attention. So for them, they're winning because they've got the attention, even though it's bad attention. So thing to do with those children, if they just keep pushing and pushing and they're wanting attention, then we give them attention because that's the need that they're trying to fulfill. But it's the way that we give the attention. Thinking back to the type of way we parent, and this is the same for teachers too, thinking about the way that you teach and the expectations you have in your classroom. The same things apply here. Thinking about that and thinking about, well, how can I give this child attention and make it positive attention? So it might be, well, things that I've done in the classroom, it might be asking the child that's on and on about this attention, asking them to hold my papers while I read a story to the rest of the children so that they think they're important, they've got my attention. Or I might say, can you go and talk to the teacher next door and tell them that it's nearly morning tea time. So you're giving them some sort of attention, you're giving them a little job to do, which makes them feel safe, it makes them feel secure, it makes them feel a little bit special because you've bothered to give them that attention. At home, it's a similar thing. It could be, oh, I really need your help. Could you take the rubbish out to the bin, please? I don't have time and I really need your help. Could you do that? I'll help you with the bin. Can you just take it out now outside to the big bin? It's about giving them attention. Well, firstly, it's about seeing what the need is and then focusing on the need, not just the behaviour, but focusing on trying to accommodate the need in a positive way and in a way that suits your family. So with the other 3 ways, there's different strategies for those 3 ways as well, but that's just an example one way that you can approach the children's behaviour. Because we have to also think about what's going on developmentally, maturity-wise, and what's going on in the brain and how they're developing. So it all smooshes in together.
So it's so clear that emotional intelligence plays an important part in these strategies. How does it fit?
Well, emotional intelligence is all about, that self-awareness. It's about building those relationships. So self-awareness is about being aware of yourself, knowing yourself well. And then once you have this self-awareness, then you can manage yourself in relationships. You can manage yourself in social situations with other adults, but also with your children as well. And it also helps you make decisions. Building those relationships using an emotionally intelligent approach is very much about having strong communication processes. So for us, it's about, looking at each other, making eye contact and, reading the smile and reading the nods that I see you're doing all the time. So it's about reading that and building those relationships and building that strong communication bond with, using an emotionally intelligent approach. So building relationships, whether you're a teacher or whether you're a parent, is a really important thing. And some of us, when we become parents, I've got 4 adult children and they were all born within 5 years. So they were all very close. So I was a busy mum for a while there. And all of us think that when we have children, we naturally have a bond with our children. But that may or may not be the case. If anyone watching has got multiple, sometimes you can relate better to some in the family than others, and that's okay. But it's about recognizing that we need to build those relationships. We still need to work on those relationships. And even if it's a fantastic relationship with your children, you can deepen those relationships. And one way to do that is just to spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes each day, or a couple of times a week with each child, and label it for what it is. So this is our time. This is the time that just you and I, let's go outside and look at the clouds in the sky, or let's go and pick some flowers together, or let's do some colouring in together, let's do some drawing together, just you and me. And then at the end of the 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you say, thank you for spending your time with me. I really loved our time together. It was really nice just being you and me for a little while. And that makes that child feel so special, and it builds that relationship, builds that bond, lifts their self-esteem, makes them feel special, makes them feel worthy, and makes them feel very valued. And guess what? It's also really nice for us, parents, to be able to spend some one-on-one time with each of our children. Sometimes we have children that are a little harder to get along with. Well, they're the ones that actually need that even more. So if you have a child that you find it a little bit difficult to get along with, whether it's in your family or in your classroom, they're the ones that you need to do this with. There was some research done not so long ago about classroom teachers, and in the research it was said that if a teacher spends 1 minute, just 1 minute, with each child in the classroom, that poor behaviour levels decrease, focus and attention of the children increase, and communication increases, oral language increases, all because the children feel special, because there's been that bond developed, because the teacher bothered to spend just 1 minute just with that child. So they felt safe, secure, valued, wanted, self-esteem went up, and they developed a stronger relationship with that teacher. And when children have a strong relationship with you, they tend to want to do things for you, and and cooperate with you. And that's what we want, because then we're all happy.
Sure. So to go with this, like, what main recommendations would you give to teachers and parents?
Okay, so probably the main recommendation to teachers is to have a classroom set up in a way that children can explore their own natural interests, and that is developmentally appropriate. So there's opportunity to be able to extend their skills, abilities, knowledge, and or if a child is at a lower level, they can still access the same materials and do it at their own level, so that we're building successful students. So we want children that feel success. We want children that feel as though they can accomplish anything, because that's going to develop their self-esteem and self-confidence. And once we have that being going on, then children can learn the academic work. So it's really important to build those relationships and give them that strength, confidence, resilience, all of those things that are necessary. Now, the same thing applies in a family situation. We're wanting to build children that have that sense of resilience. So children who have to wait for their turn to do something, that's a really good way to build resilience. Also, if your child says, I'm bored, clap your hands with joy, because that's a wonderful thing for them to say, I'm bored, because if they're bored, that's good, because that means then they have to go and use their own brain and use their imagination and think of something to do. I think in society these days, parents are so busy, and I think so many children are given a device, whether it be an iPad or a phone or some sort of gaming device or the TV. There's a way too much screen time for children. And my concern for the future is that children will lose the art of conversation, because all they do is look at a screen, or as they're older, they're texting all the time. There's the art of communication, actually talking to somebody, is decreasing. And that's a whole other topic that I don't want to get sidetracked on. But for parents, try and have those opportunities where the TV is off, there's no screens, so that children actually have to go and build a cubby house or design their own game or play tag and chase each other. They have to use their imagination, because we want to build children who are able to think for themselves. In the future, when they get their job, they need to think for themselves. So we don't want to be constantly giving them things to do. We don't want to entertain the children all of the time. We want them to be the thinkers and the movers and the shakers of our future. So that's why, again, I come back to my business name, Future Strong Education, because that's what we're aiming to achieve, that are strong for the future.
Sure. It has been more than awesome talking to you, Dr. Kathryn, today. Thank you so much for that indeed.
Very welcome. Bye, everyone.